Albain and Valmond, Emperor of Alamein, apparelled in magnificent attire, with retinue of many a knight and squire, on St. John's Eve at Vespers, proudly sat and heard the priests chant the Magnificat. And as he listened, o'er and o'er again, repeated, like a burden or refrain, he caught the words, Deposuit potentes de sede et exultavit humiles. And slowly lifting up his kingly head, he to a learned clerk beside him said, What mean these words? The clerk made answer meet, He has put down the mighty from their seat, and has exalted them of low degree. Thereat King Robert muttered scornfully, "'Tis well that such seditious words are sung only by priests, and in the Latin tongue. For unto priests and people be it known, there is no power can push me from my throne." And leaning back he yawned and fell asleep, lulled by the chant monotonous and deep. When he awoke, it was already night. The church was empty, and there was no light save where the lamps that glimmered few and faint lighted a little space before some saint. He started from his seat and gazed around, but saw no living thing, and heard no sound. He groped towards the door, but it was locked. He cried aloud, and listened, and then knocked, and uttered awful threatenings and complaints, and imprecations upon men and saints. The sounds re-echoed from the roof and walls, as if dead priests were laughing in their stalls. At length the sexton, hearing from without the tumult of the knocking and the shout, and thinking thieves were in the house of prayer, came with his lantern, asking, "Who is there?" Half choked with rage, King Robert fiercely said, "Open! 'Tis I, the king! Art thou afraid?" The frightened sexton, muttering with a curse, "This is some drunken vagabond, or worse," turned the great key and flung the portal wide. A man rushed by him at a single stride, haggard, half-naked, without hat or cloak, who neither turned nor looked at him nor spoke, but leapt into the blackness of the night, and vanished, like a spectre, from his sight. Robert of Sicily, brother of Pope Albain and Valmond, Emperor of Alamein, despoiled of his magnificent attire, bare-headed, breathless, and besprent with mire, with sense of wrong and outrage desperate, strode on and thundered at the palace gate, rushed through the courtyard, thrusting in his rage to right and left each seneschal and page, and hurried up the broad and sounding stair, his white face ghastly in the torch's glare. From hall to hall he passed with breathless speed. Voices and cries he heard, but did not heed, until at last he reached the banquet room, blazing with light and breathing with perfume. There, on the dais, sat another king, wearing his robes, his crown, his signet ring, King Robert's self in features, form, and height, but all transfigured with angelic light. It was an angel, and his presence there with a divine effulgence filled the air, an exaltation piercing the disguise, though none the hidden angel recognized. A moment speechless, motionless, amazed, the throneless monarch on the angel gazed, who met his looks of anger and surprise with the divine compassion of his eyes, then said, "Who art thou, and why comest thou here?" To which King Robert answered with a sneer, "I am the king, and come to claim my own from an impostor who usurps my throne." And suddenly, at these audacious words, up sprang the angry guests, and drew their swords. The angel answered with unruffled brow, "Nay, not the king, but the king's jester. Thou shalt henceforth wear the captain's scalloped cape, and for thy counsellor shall lead an ape. Thou shalt obey my servants when they call, and wait upon my henchmen in the hall." Deaf to King Robert's threats and cries and prayers, they thrust him from the hall and down the stairs. A group of tittering pages ran before, and as they opened wide the folding door, his heart failed, for he heard, with strange alarms, the boisterous laughter of the men-at-arms, and all the vaulted chamber roar and ring with the mock plaudits of "Long live the king!" Next morning, waking with the day's first beam, he said within himself, "It was a dream." But the straw rustled as he turned his head. There were the cap and bells beside his bed. Around him rose the bare, discoloured walls. Close by, the steeds were champing in their stalls, and in the corner, a revolting shape, shivering and chattering, sat the wretched ape. It was no dream. The world he loved so much had turned to dust and ashes at his touch.